Hello, everyone. Dr. Victoria Skirbo here, speaking to you from the Seeds of Transformation Healing Center in Wareham, Massachusetts. And we're going to do the Astrology and Kabbalah of May 2020. And we're going to start with the Kabbalah and the numerology, actually. So we have here a visual of the Hermit. This is one of my favorite pictures of the Hermit. And we can see that he has his lantern that he is shining, and he has his staff. And on his staff, he has all of the signs of the zodiac, indicative that he has been through many of the experiences that we each experience through the zodiac, and the archetypes that we experience. All right, and of course, staves are symbols of fire and symbols of spirit. And they also, because they are vertical, when you hold them vertical up, it's symbolic of spirit. The vertical line is symbolic of spirit, and the horizontal line is symbolic of our earthly path. And that cross is the cross of matter from which we are all crucified upon. Okay, so let's look at the numerology of May. And of course, as I do each month, we have the monthly vibration, and we add the monthly vibration to the universal year vibration. May, of course, is the 5th month. 5 is the number of change. And the universal year, 2020, adds up to 4. And 4 is the number of crisis, opportunity, and building. And we certainly can feel that we're in a crisis. We've actually been in a crisis all year. It's especially evident now. Last month, we were in a 4-month, in a 4-year. That was a double crisis. And certainly April was a crisis that most of us have never even imagined we could be in. And here we are the next month with the 5. And 5 is the number of change. And with 5, you have a choice. You can either devolve or evolve through this change. And so that's what we're going to see in the month of May. We're going to see a certain group of people move in the direction of evolution, and then you're going to see other people start to devolve. Now, devolution would be moving into fear. Evolution would be moving towards love. And so we have a choice. Are we going to choose love, or are we going to choose fear in May? Now, if you add these two vibrations together, we get the 9 vibration. And the 9 vibration is the energy that completes and unfolds the ending of the cycle of 1 through 9. So 9 is a sort of a wrapping up energy, right? It is a vibration that understands universal love for all mankind and impersonal view of all life as one. And so that realization that we are all one, that we are all in this together, will become more and more evident through the month of May. Now, if we look at the 9 vibration, which is the vibration for this month and year, the ultimate meaning of 9 is to give service to humanity and come to the realization of brotherhood of all mankind, rising from personal love to universal love. You know, personal love is your ability to love your family, to love your children, to love your friends, in some cases to love your neighbors. But impersonal love comes from a place of loving all of humanity, no matter who they are, what they say, what they've done. Okay? There is a thirst for spiritual knowledge in the 9, so you may find yourself looking in that direction for answers. So a thirst for spiritual knowledge and wisdom that transcends personal love and needs. So how can I help everyone? Okay. 9 is the vibration of the humanitarian. And 9 represents man's last earthly lesson, forgiveness. And so we are going to have to foster a real sense of forgiveness. And forgiveness does not necessarily mean that whatever the person or people or government or whoever it is, whatever they've done isn't necessarily, it's not like you're saying, oh, that's okay, you did that, that's no problem. That's not really what forgiveness is. Forgiveness is a gift that you give to yourself so that you can release the control that those people have over you. Because as long as you take umbrage, they're certainly going to give you reasons. The other day, I was saying that as long as you have a button to press, people will press the button. And the only way you can not get your buttons pressed is to remove the button. Okay. So in the tarot, the 9 is the Hermit card. And on the Tree of Life, the Hermit card is on the path between Hesed, which is mercy, and Tiphareth, which is beauty. I'll show you a picture of that. This path is called the intelligence of will. This is the knowledge that you create your own world with your own hands. Okay, you are responsible for the world that you are experiencing at this moment. The essence of this path is that the source of all wisdom is within. And that light that the hermit shines is the light of his own experience and his own healing journey. Now, if you get the hermit as a card, right, in a card reading, this is a divinatory meaning of the hermit. This comes from Tarot of the Spirit by Pamela Eakins, one of my favorite books on tarot, and one of my favorite tarot decks. It says, in your own heart, you carry the light and love you have often sought outside of yourself. Each one of us holds the power to fulfill ourselves. You must always return to yourself, accept yourself, and celebrate. You are beautiful, you are worthy, you are a wholly unique and wonderful individual. You are completely independent, and yet will always remain indivisibly connected to the great stream of humanity. You may feel alone, but you are not. Raise up your light and place it on a hilltop where everyone can see it. As a guide, you can aid the seekers who come your way. Remember, a lamp is not made to hide under a bowl. And here we have the Hermit card. Now, this is the Hermit card of the Rider-Waite deck. I do actually love this Hermit card. First of all, the Hermit is wearing a cloak of gray. Gray is generally associated with the Sephiroth on the Tree of Life, Chokmah, which means wisdom. And so gray is a symbol of wisdom. It's a symbol of the gray matter in our brains, right? The neurons that we process information through. We see that he has his staff right here that he's holding. And we see his lantern that he is shining on the top of the mountains. There is a sense of isolation. Okay, there's a sense of winter because we have snow here. Winter, of course, is associated with like older, wiser, you've seen life, or in the winter of your years, that kind of thing. And though we are all might not be in the winter of our years, we're certainly at this point in May, a point where we have seen a lot and we have an opportunity to sort of process that and move through that and come to an understanding, because 9 is the vibration of understanding. And this lantern in this deck is the star. There's a star in here, and it is a 6-pointed star, the Star of David, which is connected to Tiphareth on the Tree of Life. Okay, and the Star of David is made up of the triangle pointing up, which is fire, and the triangle pointing down, which is water. Okay, the triangle pointing up is aspiring to spirit. The triangle pointing down is is moving into manifestation. And when it comes together in the heart, where our lower earthly self and our higher spiritual self meet. And so this is really, the 9 is considered the number of humanity. And it is our hearts that make us human. It's that place in our hearts. And we learn through harmony, through conflict. If we're looking at the rays, the 7 rays, for those of you who know about the 7 rays, this is harmony through conflict. And we are certainly in conflict and doing our best to find harmony within that. So if we look at the tree of life, which we have here, the hermit sits on one of these paths. It sits on this path right here, between this yellow circle and this blue circle. This is Hesed, associated with the planet Jupiter. This is Tiphareth, associated with the sun. And this is the path of the hermit. And this path is associated with Virgo. And here we have the Yod, and this is what the Yod looks like. Oh, so the Yod, I'm sorry, I didn't tell you what the Yod was. The Yod is the letter associated with the Hermit Card and with this path. And we can see that this path is activated here. And a Yod means hand. And so we create our world by our own hand. The Yod is also a flame. And it is the constituent, the primary constituent of all the Hebrew letters. All the Hebrew letters are made up of flames. It is called a flame language. I believe Sanskrit is also considered a flame language. And that sense of it being a flame language is that it has come to us directly from spirit. Okay. And this is the primal sort of, or the primary building block, this Yod. And so this is a very important time. This is a time where we have access to the primary building blocks of our life and our world and our ability to be human in this world. And everything that we're learning at this time is a lesson for humans to learn about love, to learn about love. Okay, so let's get to the next one. And here we have the tree of life again. And we see that the hermit is right here. Here we have Tiphareth again. Tiphareth meaning beauty. And here we have Hesed, and Hesed meaning mercy. Okay, the beauty of mercy. The mercy of beauty. Okay. Now, if we look at this from the perspective of our energy system, our chakra system, we can see this is the path again, right here, between Hesed and Tiphareth. And it says hand on this path because the Yod means hand. But we can see that this is a connection between the throat chakra and the heart chakra. So this is a time when we must speak from our hearts, okay? Everything that we say needs to come through the filter of our own hearts. How does it make us feel? And we have to take responsibility here for what we say. And so it's very important the words that you use. It's very important what you talk about. And it may seem like, all this talk of love and oneness and helping one another and all of that is just airy-fairy BS, but actually it's not. It's very, very powerful because we're coming from a higher state. Okay, we're coming from a higher state. And here we have the throat chakra. The throat chakra is called Vishuddha, which means purification. The element in the throat chakra is sound. And this is why the words that we speak, the things that we say, how we vocalize is so very important. Many in Italy, while this pandemic was going on, many people just sort of stood out on their balconies and sang. I saw a video of an opera singer who couldn't sing opera because you're not allowed to go into the opera house, and just like sang this beautiful Nesse Dorme to his neighbors. It was beautiful. It just like opened the heart. And that's the way to use the throat chakra. None of this other like crazy stuff that you see other people whose name we will not mention it is blabbing about. And of course, the heart chakra is anahata, and anahata means unstruck. Unstruck in that every sound that we make comes from the fact that we have to strike two things together. While anahata is the sound that is unstruck. It does not. It is the sound of creation that comes through our hearts. Okay. And the next thing we're going to talk about is the astrology of this month. So there are a couple of major things happening this month, in this month of May, major shifts. And one of the most important ones that we're seeing is the transiting nodes of the moon shifting signs. Now, back in November of 2018, we had a major nodal shift. It occurred on the 6th, I think it was, which was the day of the midterms in the United States. And the nodes of the moon shifted from North Node in Leo to North Node in Cancer, and South Node in Aquarius moving into South Node in Capricorn. So since November of 2018, the nodes of the moon have been moving through Cancer and Capricorn. Cancer and Capricorn is the axis of security. It's also the axis associated with parental issues, how we were raised, right? Familial issues, the structure of society and the structure of family and how that is reflected, within each other. A family can only live within the structure of society, and the structure of society is made up of these discrete little family units, right? And so that interaction, how we find physical security, how we find emotional security. All right. This has to do with conditionings, the conditionings of the culture, the conditionings of the society that we're in, and then the conditionings of the family. So this all has to do with that energy. And in a chart, in a natural chart, Cancer and Capricorn are the line that I'm just going to show it to you on this chart, but it doesn't say Cancer and Capricorn. So this would be the Cancer place, the cusp of the 4th house. This would be the Capricorn, the cusp of the 10th house. But this is the axis right here, Cancer, Capricorn. So it's that vertical line I talked about. It's spirit. It's spirit coming down through Capricorn, manifesting on the planet through Cancer. Of course, we all come in through Cancer because we all come in through the mother, right? Okay, so that is the last 18 months have been really a real journey in the structure and how you want to sort of plant yourself in the world, okay? And in the process, we've had to move towards our feelings, feel our feelings, nurture ourselves, a lot of self-care with the North Node in Cancer. And at the same time, with the South Node in Capricorn, we were being asked to let go of conditionings that no longer served, structures that no longer served, oppression and oppression that needed to be let go of, because in Capricorn we oftentimes suppress our emotions or oppress or we become oppressed. Okay, the nodes of the moon are the nodes of the moon, and so it is an evolutionary edge for us, but it's how we react and respond to life, and so that gets shifted, and that gets tested when the nodes of the moon are in those signs. Now on May 5th, the nodes of the moon shift with the North Node moving into Gemini and the South Node moving into Sagittarius. Now, it's different. This is the axis of the mind. Excuse me 1 second. So while Cancer and Capricorn, the axis, required us to feel our feelings and let go of repression of those feelings and conditionings that perhaps wouldn't allow us to feel, with the nodes moving into Gemini and Sagittarius, it's a different energy. It has to do more with our mind. Now, Gemini as a north node is about curiosity. It's about collecting information. It's about data. It's about facts, okay? And it's about communication. So with the north node in Gemini, we are being required to communicate with one another. We have the south node in Sagittarius. What we are being asked to let go of, we're being asked to let go of opinions, philosophies, paradigms that no longer serve. Okay, this could be we could experience a real crisis, spiritual crisis with the south node in Sagittarius. Oftentimes, letting go of our beliefs and letting go of our philosophies of life can be very difficult. In some cases, we borrow those from our parents and our culture. And so this is part of that continuing sort of energy of letting go of the shoulda, coulda, wouldas, because there's a lot of shoulda, coulda, wouldas in Sagittarius as well. But for those who are more individuated, we're still going to be required to let go of some of these philosophies that we have that in many cases we've created for ourselves. So our philosophies, our beliefs will be tested. And it doesn't mean that we're throwing the baby out with the bathwater, just like when the south node was in Capricorn. It wasn't about throwing out all the structures, but it was about letting go of those structures that no longer serve, and then also seeing the weak points within the structure. And so we will be seeing the weak points in our beliefs. And beliefs are very difficult to let go of, but it is necessary at this time. And now, so let's look at the chart here, because we can see, now this is the chart for the United States, so thank you, because it is erected for Washington, D.C. Thank you to all my people who don't happen to be in America. But we can see that in the case of the United States, this nodal axis initiates, right, in the 11th house, okay, and the 5th house. This is the axis of love, all right. Now, the ruling planet of the north node is Mercury, so this is going to give us an idea of what we will be discussing, what will we be exploring, where's our curiosity going to fall, what is it that we need to talk about, right? And so we can see here that we have Mercury in Taurus, actually at 16 degrees of Taurus, right in the center of Taurus, the most fixed place in Taurus, also associated with Beltane, which is the celebration May Day, which is now, right? So this is connected to that. And so what do we need to talk about? Well, we need to talk about what's essential, Taurus, what we value, Taurus, our resources, Taurus, our money, Taurus, our food, Taurus, our shelter, Taurus, our comfort, Taurus. Now, if we look at the south node here, the ruler of the south node is Jupiter, and we have to see where Jupiter, what sign Jupiter's in. And of course, we know, or most of us know, that Jupiter is in Capricorn at this time, in a close conjunction to both Pluto and Saturn, and on this day to Pallas Athena. Jupiter in Capricorn is unbridled capitalism, folks. Okay, unbridled capitalism. Capricorn is capitalism, right? Being at the head of something, and it's not just capital, it's also government, but it can be capitalism. But this is the profit. This is like the profit idea, the idea that everything is for profit, and that needs to be let go of. And we're going through this transformational process here with Jupiter. And at the same time, we have Saturn, which is the ruling planet of Capricorn, in Aquarius, hinting that we have to restructure things to make it more egalitarian, more fair. Saturn in Capricorn. Saturn in Aquarius. So we can see that. Now, how is this going to affect your personal chart? I think I'm going to do a separate video on just this. I might have actually done a separate video on just this already, but I'll if I haven't, I will. And if I have, go back and look at it. I should probably check these things before I talk. But how this affects you on a superficial level, wherever Jupiter, in the case of the South Node, and Mercury fall in your chart, this is the area, okay, where sort of the superficial area where things are going to change. But on a core, like deeper level, you have to look at your Mercury, how you think, and your Jupiter, what you believe, and the interactions that they make within your chart. So some people have very prominent Mercuries. Like in my case, my Mercury deposits most of the planets, which you probably don't understand, but that's okay. You don't have to understand it. Most of the planets in my chart, making it, when things happen to my Mercury, very potent. So this would be an important time for somebody like me whose primary depositor is their Mercury. And some people have Jupiter as a very important part of their chart. There could be great aspects to it, or there could be challenging aspects to it. And so you have to kind of know your chart in view of the nodes, where they sit in your chart, and then also where they sit, where the rulers of those nodes, how they are within your chart. Now let's look at this with the, this is the nodal. This is the change in the nodes right here out on this, and this is the United States. And we can see that the nodes actually are falling in the first house and the 7th house of the United States. This is the Sibley chart. And there is a Gemini rising chart as well. And if that's the case, the nodes will be falling across the first and 7th house as well. I'm going to read it as the Sibley chart. And we can see here that the nodes are actually halfway through these houses. So for the next year, about the next 9 months, maybe a little bit longer, these nodes are going to continue to move through the first and the 7th house of the United States. The North Node in the 7th house of the United States. The 7th house is the house of partners and open enemies. And we know we've been having a real time of it with our partners and our open enemies. Things have been sort of shifted around. That's one of the things that this president has done. He has made our friends, he's estranged our friends and taken our enemies and given them big hugs. So I'm not commenting on whether that's a good or bad thing. Perhaps it's a good thing. Perhaps this is part of that sort of realizing that we're all in this together, and friend or foe, we all have to share this planet. So maybe on some weird level, he's taught us that. But the North Node in the 7th house requires us to talk to both our friends and our enemies, to share information, which is kind of a strange thought, right? Because we all want to keep our information, but to help, right? In order to help, in order to find fairness and balance, that Libra aspect of the 7th house. And at the same time, what are we letting go of? Our beliefs about who we are, right? Our beliefs, you know, the mythos of America. Is it really what we think it is? Are we getting a reality check? We've certainly been getting reality checks with the South Node moving through Capricorn, right? We got quite a few reality checks about where America really is, the most powerful, the richest country. We can't take care of our own people. We have, I think, 4% of the population and 23% of the COVID-19 deaths. And this is a first world country. So there's something terribly wrong in America that is up for review and to be changed. And of course, we're going to see that when we have and this is part of that process of the Pluto return in 2022. So the next few years are going to be quite key in a rebirth of what America is. And so it's important what we think. It's important that we talk about these things. I know a lot of people don't agree on either side, but we have to agree with we have to at least talk to one another. We don't have to agree. We can agree to disagree, but we have to work together. And that's what this North Node in Gemini is going to help us to do, hopefully. Okay, so let's see what's next. There is a full moon happening, and that's happening on the 7th. So let me go through this. That's the nodes. That's the nodes again. Okay, on the 7th of May, we have a full moon in Scorpio. The sun is at 18 degrees of Taurus. The moon is at 18 degrees of Scorpio. Full moons are points of awareness. The axis of Taurus and Scorpio is the axis of life and death. And so we will become aware. Now, I think at least we're going to see more death. We're going to see who dies. We're going to see, we're going to continue, especially in my country, in America, we're going to continue to see this issue between the haves and the have-nots, as, you know, the amount of money and the amount of access to resources and healthy food and clean places to live are going to affect who lives and dies through this epidemic, right? And that's really a deep dive and a look into the power structures in America and what's really going on. You know, the idea of America is, and I'm sorry to keep bringing America into this in a way, because I know not everybody is from America, but I think that people are interested because America really is an idea, is an experiment, right? It's a social experiment. Can it really work? I'm optimistic of that, but it's going to be hard. It's going to be challenging, and we're going to see this in May. And this is part of our understanding of what it means to be human. Remember, this is a 9 vibration. So let's take a look at, these are the Sabian symbols. I'll read them out to you. Sun at 18 degrees, a woman airing an old bag through an open window of her room. The cleansing of the ego consciousness, and the key word is purification. Remember, Vishuddha purification is one of the chakras activated, and Taurus rules the throat, incidentally, in case you were wondering, the throat and the neck. 18 degrees of Scorpio, it says, a path through the woods brilliant with multicolored splendor, the exalted feeling of a work well done in a truly consummated life. That is a deep sense of satisfaction with the work that you do, knowing that it makes a difference, knowing that it embodies and enlivens the world. And so in a way, this full moon is asking us to really look to see what is it, how do you want to express yourself? How do you want to how do you want to create? The Taurus is the throat chakra. Scorpio is the generative organs. Both Taurus and Scorpio are creative in their own ways. And so this is an awareness about what is it that you want to bring forth? What do you want to create as we move into, quite frankly, a whole new paradigm? We're moving into a whole new paradigm. Here is the full moon in Scorpio. This is, I did this for Washington, D.C. We have the moon in the 12th house. We have, I'm sorry, the sun in the 12th house, the moon in the 6th house. And let's see what else, to see if there's anything significant about this full moon. The sun is conjunct Mercury. Okay, so we have that. The moon is the sun is trine Pluto, so that's transformation. The moon is, it's sextile Pluto, giving us opportunity for progressive change, the kind of sextile that it is. The sun is sextile Neptune, opening the lines of communication to spirit. The moon is trine Neptune, sharing our understanding with one another. So that's pretty cool. Let's go to the next. This is the United States, the Sibley chart again. The axis of this full moon is occurring in the 5th and 11th houses in America, and this is the axis of love. This is personal love and creativity, and this is impersonal love, love for humanity. Okay, it's being expressed and it's being expressed, and it's being laid bare, so to speak. So with this, let's just see what else is going on here. We have Jupiter sitting on Pluto here with this chart. We have Pluto opposite, almost exactly, a little past exact opposite Mercury in Cancer in that 8th house. There's a lot of Pluto opposite Mercury at this time in America. There is a lot of control over what is being said and what is being heard. So be aware that, and certainly those of us who are on YouTube are aware, there are certain things you can't say, there are certain things you can't put in your descriptors because they will take your videos off. Even if you're well-intentioned and the information that you're giving is going to be helpful to people, they really want you to sort of walk the party line with this, and that is not what America is about. America is about freedom of speech. And so we have to remember that we don't necessarily want to quiet that freedom of speech. Of course, we don't necessarily want, armed gunmen going to where the governor and the mayors live because they don't want to have the stay-at-home stuff. That's not what I'm talking about. But be aware that there is a controlling of what is being said and what can be said and what is being heard. And so you need to seek out what you need to seek out to get the full story, because the full story is not going to be given to you at this time. Okay. So let's see what else we have here. I'm just going to go through this very quickly. I will be doing this each day of the month, so you will hear all of this eventually. Okay, so on May 11th, we have a shift with Saturn stationing retrograde at 2 degrees of Aquarius. The Sabian symbol for that is an unexpected thunderstorm. And I want to read this. The keynote here is the need to develop the inner security which will enable us to meet unexpected crises. This scene stresses the fact that nature may reduce to impermanence the seemingly most permanent endeavors and constructive activities of men. Under the downpour of rain, adobe bricks can return to mud. All human institutions and their achievements can be washed away, even in their day of greatest glory. Dust you were and dust you must become. This is nature's challenge. And so it's very possible. There's a theory that the virus is nature's way of culling and stopping us from our self-destructive behaviors. But there's also climate change that we have to deal with. And I don't think that just because we're in the middle of a pandemic, that the climate's going to say, oh, okay, we'll give you guys a break and you can just deal with the pandemic. No, I think that there's going to be quite a bit of earth changes and earth and climate activity. And so we need to be aware of that. And we need to be aware that it is true. I mean, we could just, right? And so let's work towards, and let's pay attention to the earth. Now, of course, the North Node in Gemini with Mercury being in Taurus already told us that. So these are just repeating patterns and repeating thoughts. And here we have Saturn stationing retrograde. This is again erected for Washington, D.C. Saturn stationing retrograde is happening in the first house here of this chart. And it is conjunct Pallas Athena. Pallas Athena is in Aquarius. She's been actually moving along with Pluto and Jupiter and Saturn. She was in Capricorn for a long time. Now she's in Aquarius, and she's with Saturn in Aquarius. Pallas Athena is the goddess of wisdom. And so I described her as the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of government. She's going to make sure we know what's going on. She's going to speak up and speak out. Pallas Athena will. I'm going to do Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's chart again so we can look and see where her palace is. I know it's very prominent, and I can't remember where it is right now. Okay, so, all right, on the 11th, we also have Mercury ingressing into Gemini. Mercury is the ruling planet of Gemini, so it's very powerful, okay? And of course, the North Node is now in Gemini. All right. On the 13th, we have Mars moving into Pisces. And on the same day, we have Venus stationing retrograde at 22 degrees of Gemini. Venus retrograde is our opportunity to rethink and really sort of look deep within our own sense of values. Rethink our money, rethink our relationships, rethink our relationship to ourselves, rethink our relationship to communication and the necessity for communication. In esoteric tradition, Venus is actually the soul. Gemini is the soul ruler of Venus. It's called the soul ruler. It's a different rulership system. It's as if the highest soul intent is that ability to communicate and share and compare and contrast. Gemini really is the height of duality, and we live in a dual world, and so we have to look at things. We have to look at both things side by side. We need to bring those together. All paradoxes must be resolved. Okay, and we have Venus retrograde right here. Where is she? In the 4th house. So with Venus and Venus will be retrograde she's retrograde for about 40 days. So she will go direct. I don't have the date in my head. I'll tell you in a second. Wait, can I? I'll be right back to tell you. Hold on. I'm just trying to find. Here we go. Okay. Sorry, guys. All right. So Venus is retrograde from May 13th. It goes retrograde at 22 degrees of Gemini. It retrogrades all the way back to 6 degrees of Gemini, and we'll go direct on the 24th of June, okay? And it also is within its shadow until July 28th, looks like. So through this period, we're going to be reevaluating. And Venus is in Gemini for, let's see, all in all, Venus is in Gemini from April 4th to August 8th. April, May, June, July, and then August it changes. So for 4 months, Venus is in Gemini. And so we will have a lot to talk about, folks. Venus is also the economy. And we can see here in the United States chart, or in the chart erected for Washington, is Venus retrograde falls in the 4th house, and this is the real estate market. So we can expect some upheaval within the real estate market. Okay. All right, let's see what else. Jupiter will station retrograde on the 14th. So we have, first we have Venus retrograde, and then we have Jupiter retrograde. And Jupiter retrograde is us reviewing what we believe, what we believe to be true. It is an opportunity for us to go over all the things that we have learned since Jupiter was in Capricorn, and that started at the end of last year. We're getting a review period now. Okay, so let's continue. And there's the Jupiter stationing retrograde in Washington, D.C. Jupiter is in the 6th house of work, okay, and the military and the healthcare system. So this will be a review of all of those things, perhaps how the healthcare system has been able to withstand this pandemic, what needs to change. And that is something that we will be working with through the whole time that the nodes of the moon are in Gemini and Sagittarius. Part of that is going to be that question. How do we reconfigure our healthcare system? Kitty's here. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Okay, we're just going to go through these. On the 20th, the sun ingresses into Gemini. So the energy changes from Taurus, which is very practical, to Gemini, which is very curious. The thing with this shift is that when the sun's in Taurus, we don't mind being at home. We really don't. We like being at home. We like being in our comfort zone. We like being in our garden. Once the sun moves into Gemini, however, we're going to feel a little bit more curious. And so I think there's going to be a little bit more antsiness and wanting to get out. And they're even in this state, Massachusetts, they're talking about that may be when they start to loosen some of the rules so that we can get out a little bit more. We'll see. We'll see. Okay, let's see what we have here. This is the sun's ingress into Gemini. This is for Washington, D.C. It's occurring in the 11th house of groups, technology, and the Congress. So, hopefully the Congress can get together and start working out some of the issues that we have now, because we need to start talking to one another. The Democrats and the Republicans are going to have to be bipartisan on a lot of things, and the divisions are going to be very, very disruptive and damaging if we're not careful at this time. Okay. All right. Let me see. On I don't even know what day it is. We have a new moon in Gemini. I'll tell you what day it is. I didn't put it here. I think it's the 22nd, but I could be wrong. And it is 3 degrees of Gemini, and the ruling planet of Gemini is at 21 degrees of Gemini. And so the saving symbol for the 1st degree of Gemini is the Garden of the Tuileries in Paris, the formalization of collective ideals through the application of reason and order to newly discovered aspects of nature, keyword formalism. However, the ruling planet of Gemini is at 21 degrees of Gemini, and the symbol for that is a tumultuous labor demonstration, the revolutionary impact of mental concepts upon the collective emotions and desires of man, emotional outburst. So while one of the symbols is about balance and order and beauty, the other one is about disruption. And this is what we're going to see. We're going to see 2 opposite energies right next to one another, and how are we going to deal with that? So it does seem like there's going to be a lot of challenges. Here is that new moon, and it does happen on the 22nd, May 22nd. And here we have, this is for Washington, D.C., and we have it in the ninth house. The ninth house is foreign places, talking to those in foreign places. It's also the judiciary, so we could see some changes within the judiciary, or we could see some things coming down through the judiciary that we've been waiting to see. Okay, all right. And here we have the United States chart. Again, this is the Sibley chart, and this new moon occurs in the 6th house. The 6th house of work, the 6th house of the military, the 6th house of service. So we need new, the workplace is, especially what we're seeing now in America, is these large meat packing and plants and such. Our food chain, all of that is being affected by this virus. And so workers' conditions need to be looked at and reimagined, so that as we move forward, this won't be a problem again. It won't put the workers at risk, and it won't put our economy and our food chain at risk. So this is something that we can look at with the new moon in Gemini. All right. And I think that's the major stuff I want to talk about for May. So hopefully you find this helpful. And like I said, each day I will go over what's happening. So when we get to these points where there are big things happening, I will talk about them in more detail. Have yourself a beautiful month. This is a time of understanding. It's a time of forgiveness. It's a time when we really, truly have to come to terms with the fact that we are responsible for one another. And then we need to come up with the ideas that are going to move us through into the future, into a future that's more fair and equitable for all. Have yourself a great month, and I will see you again soon. Like, subscribe, and if you do enjoy these videos, please donate. This is how I make my money. This is how I make my living. My living. Take care. Bye.